Hi everyone, it's Serena here from Sin and Die in Texas, and welcome to week 10 of our quarantine fiber group. I'm so happy to have everybody here. Tonight I'm going to be weaving, so you're welcome to weave along with me, but if you have another project that you're working on, please feel free to do that and let us know what you're working on because we would love to hear about it. So I am going to weave a small tapestry. So I always have a general plan of what I'm going to do for our meetings, but I have this really bad habit of going, I'll just grab all the stuff I need on Monday. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So I decided after last week, I had mentioned that I was going to be weaving this week. So I knew I wanted to do that. And then after I finished the auto wrap yarn, I thought, I think I'm just going to make a little tapestry with it. I'll use my tapestry loom. That way it can be set up on the table, blah, blah, blah. It all sounded like it would work out really, really well. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to my tapestry loom. I looked for it. I don't know what I did with it. It might be in the attic. And I just couldn't go. The door to our attic is in the room that my husband works in during the day. So couldn't go in there and disturb him while he was on meetings. So I did remember that I had I believe it's a 22-inch shack to loom that I had borrowed from the guild that I belong to. And so I spent about 2 hours this afternoon figuring out how I could make it work as a tapestry loom, simply because, if I'm going to use a rigid heddle, I didn't want to have to weave, but I want to end up with the same thing. Wanted to make sure you guys would be able to see it as well. So thankfully, I think I've got it all figured out. And that's what I'm going to be weaving on. So I'm only weaving about, I also put the reed in backwards so I can't see the measurement, but it's about a 10-inch little tapestry that I want to do. I'm going to be using the auto wrap silk. So this is the one that I worked on last week in our meeting on Monday. And then this is the one that I worked on in the meeting on Thursday. So I'm going to be using those two. And I'm going to combine it with just some big twist. It's a gray. This color is medium gray. And I believe it's an acrylic yarn. Let me make sure. Yeah, it is an acrylic. I got it on sale at Joann's months and months and months ago. I think because it's such a nice neutral color, I think it's going to help really pop the auto wrap yarn that I'm using. And in addition to that, I chose a very small reed in the hopes that the texture of the yarn won't get lost because it'll pop through the warp. The warp that I'm using is a dark purple crochet thread, and it's nice and strong. I've used this as warp before and I really like it. And I think it's going to work really well because this reed is, I don't even know the size of the reed because, like I said, I borrowed this one from the guild I belong to. So I just got whatever they gave me. But it's a nice tight reed. So I would say probably 12 dent, maybe 15, probably 12. So this is my first time working on the shack. I'm not going to be, my goal is to only work in this area. Let's do it that way so you can actually see what I'm doing. My goal is to only work in this area here, so I don't plan on having to adjust it at all. But the reason why I wanted something smaller is because I should be able to show it to you a lot easier than I have in the past using my Kromsky, because it's just too big and it's awkward on the stand and everything. So I've already warped, obviously. You can see that on the screen there. And then I've also done my starter weft so that I could align the warp the way I wanted it. So I've already got all that completed, so I'm going to go ahead and start weaving. I have a general plan, which is it's going to be double cleft. And yes, I know I put everything on a shuttle. Don't ask me why I did that. I guess I just felt like I needed more work to do, so I put everything on a shuttle when I could have just rolled a ball of the gray and been done with it. I didn't do that. But I'm going to do double cleft, and we've done that before on the last time I did weaving, I believe. We did that. So I am hoping that since this isn't a super wide piece, having the gray on the shuttle shouldn't mess things up too much when it comes to just making it feed through easily. We'll see. I'm going to start with a couple rows of the gray, because I do want to have I like having a nice edge on top and bottom edge, not talking about selvages on the ends. But I like to have a nice edge to kind of bookend my projects. And so this one, I think I'll use the gray to bookend it, and we'll see how it comes out. I can always undo it if I have to. So, and I have to say, having never used a shacked loom before, so far I'm not super impressed. Oh, I just realized, hang on one second. I'll be right back. Forgot my pick. Okay, so I have to say the shacked so far I'm not super impressed with. Just putting it together, I don't like this. There's an additional bar here and at the back, and I think it's to help hold tension. I'm honestly not sure, but I find that it's in the way. It actually reduces the amount of weave space that you have, and so far I'm not a fan, but we'll see how it goes as I keep going with my little MacGyvered tapestry loom here. Sliding that in. And also I am on a table, and that could be part of the Here's my shuttle. I was like, where'd my shuttle go? That could be part of the reason why I'm not liking it, just because it is at a very flat angle versus having that little tilt that you get when you have a loom on a stand. So that could be part of the misgivings that I have, is it's just not what I'm used to doing. Now, for this project, I'm thinking I want to, see, and the notches for the reeds seem a little shallow for my tastes, but that's just me. I think I'm going to try and do some of those hill style that you see if you are on any weaving groups. I've never done that before, so I don't know. I got to see what the auto wrap looks like. But I thought this would be a fun project to work on with you guys, since this is a yarn that you've seen from beginning to end. So 2 weeks ago, we spun the silk. Then last week, we did the auto wrap. And now this week, we're putting it into a project. So I did mention that my one thing that I really like about auto wrap as an art yarn is that it's a functional art yarn. And this is an example of that function coming to life. It's able to go into a project. It's going to work just fine from the perspective of hopefully adding some really nice texture to this weave. Now, I've done 4 rows of the gray, and I think I'm going to keep it at that. This is a worsted weight, I believe. What does it say? Yeah, worsted weight. So this is a worsted weight yarn, which is a little bit thicker. And so those 4 is giving me about 1/4 inch-ish of edge on my weave. So that works. Now I'm going to start with the yarn that we spun together last week, because This one is thicker. It's got a lot more, the way the wrap worked in this yarn, it really does have some nice chunky fun things going on. So that is where I'm going to start. And where are my scissors? Oh my gosh, I'm unprepared today. Yikes. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I'm in quarantine just like you guys. I had nothing else to do today. Well, that's not true. I did other stuff, but I shouldn't be unprepared, that's for sure. Okay, got my end woven in there. And here we go. So yeah, so this one came out a lot thicker than the one that I spun on in Thursday's meeting. And so I'm hoping, you know what, I'll just do this. I'm hoping that that will also mean that it's going to add a lot more texture. The other one that I spun, it came out far more delicate. And I like delicate as much as the next person, but this, I'm really hoping to get some fun texture out of this. And I think this yarn is going to help me to do that if it doesn't wind all over itself. Now, one problem that I do think I might run into is I have not wet set this yarn yet. And I didn't do it on purpose because once my weave is completed, I'm going to try and felt it a little bit. And I wanted that merino that's in the wool, obviously merino is in wool, right guys? The merino that's in the yarn, I wanted it to be able to felt into the weave versus just already being felted a little bit from wet setting. And so because of that, it has a lot more twist in it than I would like. Yeah, I do like how that texture is though. I'll show you guys in a second. But it has a little bit more twist in it than I would normally like to work with, especially for weaving because things can get tangled. So we may run into some issues with that. We'll see. But honestly, I think we'll be able to get away with it because I did use a tighter dent, like I mentioned at the beginning, and I think that's going to help keep. Hang on one second. I'm battling with a little end here. Okay. I think that's going to help to keep things sliding smoothly through. I think when you use a wider dent, you end up with more space for mistakes to be made. And especially if you're using a yarn like this, which is going to vary in width as we move along, because that was what we were doing. That was part of the end product we were trying to get, was something that was a little bit uneven and a little bit funky. So anyway. And because I'm working in such a small space, or hoping to work in such a small space, I'm also hoping that that means that I'll be able to show you what it's going to look like at the end. I won't have it cut off of the loom for sure, but I think I'll be able to show you guys what the end product is at the end of this meeting, or something very close to it. I don't think I've really been able to do that yet because the projects that we've worked on, I've shown you every step, of course, and shown you an approximation of what something was going to look like when it was completed. But I don't think I've actually completed a full project on here yet, simply because I wasn't able to with the projects that I chose. So this one, I should be able to get through this whole section in an hour. We'll see. We'll see. But that's my hope. And then one thing that you do run into with working with an auto wrap for weaving is that because it does have thicker and thinner sections, it may catch on the warp a little bit, and you just have to be gentle. It's not hard to navigate through. It's not going to knot up or anything weird like that. It just can be a bit temperamental at some spots. So I decided to give up on the shuttle before I even started, and instead I'm just pulling it out of the center of the skein over there. So that's what's happening behind the scenes, or behind the loom. And I am getting some fun texture in here. So I like what I'm seeing so far. Now, while I go, and I'll go a little bit longer before I show you guys on the camera, but how is everyone else's week going? I hope it's going fantabulously so far. I mean, we're only one day in, but you know, let's be honest, Monday sets the tone for the whole week. So I hope you guys are doing good so far. I am doing great because it's my last week of teaching. And while I absolutely love teaching spinning and being able to just bring someone else into the fiber world, I definitely have found that the online class environment is a very difficult way to teach art, because there is something very helpful about being in person. You can touch the wheel, you can feel a hand-spun yarn, you can do all of these things that just aren't possible in a virtual environment. So I am glad that the students have all done very well. I'm glad that we have tried it out. I really hope we do not have to do it in the fall, because it's just a different beast, and I'll have to rethink some things if that's what we're going to do. But the one thing that teaching, and I can't remember, I want to say it was, I can't remember. It was some show, and it was about, there was a teacher, and he said every teacher should spend time in the back of their own classroom. Oh, I think it was on numbers. Every teacher should spend time in the back of their own classroom. And I had a little moment like that this week, because I had a student who asked me, how do you wrap a ball of yarn? She had finished the project, the plying her yarn, and she just didn't know how to take it off the bobbin. And at first I thought, oh, that's easy. I'll just write her a quick note and tell her how to do it. But as I started trying to write all the individual steps for wrapping a ball of yarn, which is something that I think most of us, after you've been working with yarn for a long time, you tend to say, you tend to do it without thinking. You have the muscle memory. You don't even have to look, and you've got a ball, right? And it was funny because I was trying to send her instruction, and of course I wanted it to be clear because, again, virtual environment. But one thing that I ran into was explaining it in a way that was meant for someone who didn't know how to do it, versus explaining it to someone who's done it before but maybe just liked your technique a little better, or, you know, things like that. So it was just interesting to think about how we explain things when it comes to our art and things that we do on a regular basis, versus how other people who maybe don't do them or are new to that subject might understand it. So it was my little aha moment. Plus, I love being able to tie things back to TV shows that I really enjoy, because, and I really enjoy numbers. It's been off the air, I think, for like 10 years or something. I don't even know. I watch a lot of old TV shows. My favorite show of all time, and I literally mean of all time, is MASH, which went off the air about 6 months before I was born. But it is absolutely my all-time favorite show. I know more trivia than any human being should know about that show. And I've seen every episode probably a couple hundred times in my life. And so, yeah, I love watching shows that are already off the air because there's no suspense. You just go to the next episode, you find out what happened. You just search it online, you find out what happened. So anyway, I really do enjoy Numbers 2. And it's on Amazon Prime, I believe, for free. If anyone is looking for something else to watch during quarantine and you're not sure what you would pick, try out Numbers. It's a crime drama, hour-long, and it follows a brother, an FBI agent, and his brother, who's a mathematician who helps him solve all the crimes. And it's just fun. It's just fun. And it has Judd Hirsch in it as the dad, and I love Judd Hirsch. Of course, most people probably already know that because, like I said, it went off the air years and years ago. But it's a fun watch if you have already watched all the new stuff. So I'm currently finishing out a show, which is not one I've ever watched before. And it's I watch on Hulu. I don't watch like cable. So I'm watching My 600 Pound Life, which is interesting. Sometimes a little bit frustrating if you've never seen the show. It's pretty self-explanatory what it's about, but it's kind of frustrating. But I probably would have stopped watching it a while ago because there are parts that aren't interesting to me or are too sad or whatever. But I have this weird thing where if I start a show, I have to finish the show. No matter what, I have to finish it, whether I like it or not. And so I have been watching My 600 Pound Life for like 2 weeks now, I think, maybe longer. I'm so sick of it, but I only have 3 episodes left on Hulu, and then I never have to watch it again. So I'm getting through those 3 episodes, and then I don't know what I'm going to watch next. Probably Ozark. We started that one a couple weeks ago and then haven't gotten back to it because my husband and I are watching that one together, so the rules are different. But I'll probably watch Ozark next because I've been told it's a great show, and I love Jason Bateman, so it doesn't matter what he does, it has to be great. I even love Jason Bateman in Juno, and he turned out to be the bad guy. So, well, I don't know if bad guy is the right word, but he definitely wasn't a good guy. So, oh, don't get stuck. Okay, let me see if I can get this in the camera like I'm hoping to be able to do. First off, there. Hang on, make sure I got enough leeway over here. All right. So even at that angle, you can kind of see the texture because all of this, like this is all bumps from the auto wrap. But I'm going to hold it up so you can kind of see what's happening. And let me see if I can get it at an angle. It's hard to see the texture because of the ties, but there is some texture in there. And I'm getting a nice little pop of colors coming from the silk. Remember, the base of that yarn was a cream, very light mocha colored merino. So all the color is going to be coming from the silk itself. And I'm thinking I might switch to, wondering if I could do double cleft with just the 2 auto wraps and take the gray out for a while. And maybe just finish off with the gray, and in the center, it's just these 2. I'm going to try it. What's the worst that can happen? This is the great thing about art is you can't really do it wrong. You can just not like the end result. But in the grand scheme of things, it's never wrong. All right, so let me clip this. It's funny how disorganized I was today with the missing scissors and the missing beater and everything, because I was ready like an hour ago. I was all set. I had my table set up. We were navigating around it if we had to walk into the living room, whole 9 yards. And then, of course, I'm not fully prepared. Okay, so let's see. Yeah. Make sure to start at the pink. So I think I've demonstrated double cleft weft before, but in case you weren't in that meeting or you don't remember how it's done, basically, I'll give me just a second here. I got tangles on both ends. Okay. So basically how you achieve a double cleft weft is by, or cleft weft, not double. I always call it the wrong thing. What you do, and I'll show it to you here. Okay, so let's just tuck that in. Actually, hang on one second. I'm sorry. I started telling you guys something and then I got an idea. And I got distracted. So give me just a second. There we go. So I pulled this through a lot further than I would normally have to lock it into place, because I'm hoping to start to get a bit of an angle here. We'll see if it works. I don't know. Anyway, so to do a double cleft weft, I have this yarn on a shuttle, and then I have this ball over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the shuttle through my shed, through the opening, and I'm going to pull it under the yarn coming off of my ball. So you can kind of see there how it's coming through underneath. And I'm going to pull the yarn from the shuttle through until it is tight on the opposite end like I want it. So you don't want to leave a big loop on that side or anything, because then you run the risk of pulling in your edges and it's not going to be pretty. So there we go. All right. So once you do that, now I'm going to take, I haven't moved my reed. I'm going to take my shuttle and run it back through the shed. And when I pull it back through, because I wrapped it under the ball of yarn over here, it's going to start pulling that ball of yarn through. And you can see, so this V right here is my shuttle yarn, and this V right here is the ball of yarn. So I'm pulling it through, and then what you do is at the center, that's where it's cleft, that's where it's hooked together, you are going to just line that up where you want it on your piece. And it doesn't matter where you're going to put it. So you might find that you want it to go almost all the way across. You might find that you want just a little bit of that new yarn over on the edge. Wherever you line it up, that's fine. Then you stop and you beat. So, all right. And so now I have this darker one over on the right side and the lighter one coming in on the left. And I'm going to keep doing that. So I'm going to keep bringing it in. I always kind of stop it just wherever I feel like. Sometimes I'm going for a specific angle. One time I did this technique in order to create an Austin skyline, which is on my Instagram if you want to check it out. And so that one was a lot more specific. I was almost counting off warp threads to make sure that I had it lined up as close to perfect as I could. And it worked out. It was just more tedious. For this project, though, because I'm doing it as a tapestry, and I'm doing it more freeform, I'm not super worried. I'm just going to stop it where I like that break in the two yarns to be. So we're going to keep going here. Okay. Oh, I look a little pale on the screen tonight. I think it's because it's hot in my house. Sorry, guys. I look a little funny. Do not adjust your television sets. It's just me. Or your computer screens, I should say. But it's hot in my house today. Summer is here in Texas. It's 90 gabillion degrees outside today. And I try really hard not to run my air conditioner too much, because if we all run our air conditioners too much, then we blow transformers. And when we blow transformers, none of us get air conditioning. So it stays pretty hot in my house until the sun goes down usually. And then I'll be wild and crazy and turn my air down a little bit more. We also get direct sun for most of the day. So that's another reason our air conditioner will just run all day. So this, I like this, doing the auto wrap on both sides. It is giving me a nice, interesting switch in colors, although the colors are rather similar. So it's not as poppy as I wanted it to be, but that's all right. And actually, I'm making good progress, so I may end up getting through this pretty quick. We may get to end a little early today. Not that you guys are forced to stay here anyway, but I'm thinking I might finish up around 45 minutes just because of how fast this is going. So this one's going to be fun. I've got a big loop of auto wrap in here. And so this is going to be a little bit tedious because I'm trying to kind of run it through without losing or stretching out that section too much, because I like the way it looks kind of unadulterated. So I am going to actually just leave that right there, because I want to get that nice bumpy texture. So I'm sure all of us are kind of sick of the insides of our houses at this point. We've now been in for 9 weeks-ish, depending on when quarantine started in your area. And, how many times can you look at your own four walls, right? So we've been having the same problem in our house, not to mention the fact we have the all-day sun that I mentioned a minute ago. And so we bought curtains and got them yesterday and put up curtains in our bedroom, new curtains. And it is amazing the difference that I feel. I'm sorry, it's really warm in my house. That I feel just walking into my room and seeing something different for like the first time in 2 years or something like that. So if you are sick of your house, I highly recommend doing a small project to try and switch things up a little bit, because it really did wonders for my whole approach to the day. All right, so I'm actually almost to an end point. I thought I would go a little bit further, but I think given the texture that I got out of this and how it is looking, I might end up using it as a little mug rug. So I think it would work as one. It's going to be flat enough with just a little texture, but not so much to knock anything over. So I'm going to do one more pass, and we are actually going to finish off a little bit early today. So sorry about that if you were looking forward to the full hour, but you don't have to tell anyone. I promise I won't tell anyone. And you can still enjoy your peaceful time without any fuss or muss from anyone else in the house. So actually, let me pull that one out. All right, do I like where that's at? Kind of do. I have to say, I do really love the effect that you get from the auto wrap. Let me trim this down a little bit. Just see what we got here. Yeah, maybe a couple more passes. Let's just see. Let's see where it takes us. I've never done a weave this small before, to be honest. The closest I ever did was the first loom I ever used was a 12 or 16 inch Cricut. And that one was small, but I used a ton of warp, just a ton of warp. And I ended up with like, I don't know, 5 or 6 foot length scarf was my first project. It was not well woven, but I was very proud of it at the time. And I think that's the most narrow I've ever done. So this is a whole new kind of ball game for me in planning out how I want things to look. And I did not put an edge on my warp. So my warp is just that dark purple that I talked about at the beginning. I did not use any like black or something to kind of bookend it on the sides. So, all right, I think that is where I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I like what I achieved. I can definitely see the work that went into the auto wrap yarn, and I've got some fun texture in there. So it's very, very small. You'll see. I'm going to hold it up here. Oh, but you can really see that texture. See all these little bumpy, that's a bumpy. Yeah, so see all these little bumpies we got in there? And the last thing I would do is probably add just a couple of rows of the gray to match the bottom. And then I think I'm going to tie it off and use it as a small mug rug. Maybe, no, it'll be a mug rug. I like how it came out, and it really is a good example of something that you can do with the auto wrap yarn that will show off what you've created. Whereas when you knit or crochet with something, sometimes you lose some of the texture because of the uniform stitches. So this is a way to really embrace that texture that you've created with your yarn here. Wait, let's see. I can't get it in there right to see. No, it's not going to work. All right. But it's a really good way to just play with the auto wrap, see how it comes out, and end up with a fun project. So I hope if you are a weaver that you'll give it a shot. If you're not a weaver, I hope you will become one. It's fun to do, even just as a mild hobby and not something you're going to do all the time. But it's a nice thing to be able to fall back on, especially when you end up with fun yarns that you don't know what to do with. So I'm going to go ahead and end there. We're going to end just a little bit early today. I hope you guys had fun. I really enjoyed myself. Next week, I think I'm going to be weaving again, but I'm going to be doing the houndstooth next week. I had planned on doing it this week, but I wanted to finish off the auto wrap first. So next week, we will do the houndstooth. So be prepared for that. It will be this setup again, so you'll be able to actually see what I'm doing. But just for reference, you'll need, if you want to follow along with me, you will need 2 colors of yarn to work with. And lastly, starting this week, we will only be meeting on Mondays. We're no longer meeting on Thursdays moving forward. I think a lot of people have started to return to work and started kind of getting, we'll call it back to normal in quotes. And so because of that, we're just going to meet on Mondays, but we will still meet weekly from now until the end of quarantine official, unless something changes, and we'll talk about it if that happens. So that's where we're at. I hope you had a good time, and make sure to like and subscribe to my videos so you can find out when I go live. And you can also check me out on Instagram, Spin and Dye in Texas, or on Etsy at Spin and Dye in Texas is my shop name. So have a great week, and I will see you next Monday. Bye, guys.